temperature goes up to minus 34 degrees centigrade. In summer, usually the summer lasts for only 2 months and the temperatures are around 3 to 12 degrees centigrade, but still they are high. It means very cold temperatures when compared to other ecosystems. And this the word tundra, it came from a Finnish word in Finland. So the language, Finnish language, from that it has come. Tunturia means treeless land. Means you don't find any trees there because there is no rainfall. Okay. And there are two types, Arctic tundra, alpine tundra. So I already told like tundra is seen in two places. One is in Arctic region and another is at the top of mountains. So whatever the tundra which is seen in Arctic region, that tundra is called Arctic tundra. And those which are seen on mountains above trees, so that is alpine tundra. And in each ecosystem, we find some trees and some animals, some kind of species which are distributed. So in tundra, the largest animal which we see is polar bear. Okay. Now, this is the example. You can see the pictures. Arctic tundra is completely covered with the snow. Alpine tundra, the land is clear, but the top of the mountains, you can see some snow. So this is the tundra in Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. So in Alaska, we have this area where you can see this tundra ecosystem. So these are the animals like polar bears, beetles, long-tailed weasels. So these are the various organisms which you can see in the tundra. The next is taiga ecosystem. In taiga, it is the largest terrestrial ecosystem seen in Europe, North America, and Asia. So here you can find forests like coniferous forests or boreal forests. So the summers are very short and wet, and winters are very cold and it lasts for longer periods. Snow, you can see plenty of snow during winters, and in summer we can experience plenty of rainfall. Because we have rainfall, we can expect some trees. Like this is one taiga example, and this is another, like coniferous trees are mostly seen here. The next is temperate deciduous forest. So here we can experience all 4 seasons, like winter, spring, summer, fall. And they are easily recognizable, but by weather changes or by physical appearance, we can distinguish between 4 seasons, and each season lasts for around 3 months. So in United States, Canada, Europe, China, Japan, and some parts of Russia, we can see these temperate deciduous forests. And here the soil is very fertile and it consists of nutrients. So we can easily expect the growth of variety of trees here. And the animals like black bears, wolves are seen in this temperate deciduous forests. And the growing season, so whatever the trees which are growing, that season lasts for around 6 months. And after that, slowly, first when during growth, the leaves all are present in the green color. After 6 months, they will turn into yellow or red or different colors. If you see in like pictures or videos in the foreign countries, so the leaves will be in different colors. This is because of the content of chlorophyll. So when it is growing, so the chlorophyll content will be very high and the leaves will be green in color. And when the season changes, it will change to different colors like yellow or red, where the chlorophyll content will be reduced. And after they turn their color, they will fall. So the fall season will come. Okay. Next is tropical rainforest. So this covers around 7% of the Earth's surface, and they are present in Brazil of South America. And it is one of the oldest ecosystem, and it is a major oxygen producer in the air, whatever we breathe. So the largest forest, which we already studied in our school days, is Amazon rainforest. So from where you have lots of trees, and from where we get our oxygen. Okay, so oxygen production in the environment is majorly contributed by this forest, rainforest. The next is grasslands. So grasslands are known as prairies and savannas. So they are situated, usually grasslands we can see in forest as well as desert also. And in every desert in Asia is surrounded by these grasslands. So 25% of the earth is covered by this grassland ecosystem. And in all continents, we can see this grassland except in Antarctica, where you cannot expect any growth of grass. So grasslands are of two types, tropical and temperate. So tropical grasslands, they experience warm weather all over the year. But in temperate grasslands, some part of the year is very cold, some part of the year is very hot. And these grasslands are perfect for cropping. So we can see, because the sand is, the soil is deep and it is extremely fertile. So for cropping purpose, this is very good. And it is located in southern hemisphere, while tropical grasslands are present in the southern hemisphere, and temperate grasslands are located in northern hemisphere. And the animals which are present in this grassland ecosystem are zebras, lions, owls, prairie dogs, and foxes. So especially in the United States, whatever the grasslands which are present are known as prairies. And they are considered to be temperate grasslands. So here we can see a grassland west of Coalinga. This is in California. This is savanna, which is present in Kenya. And this is Colorado prairie. So in the Colorado, we can see this. Then next is desert. So deserts, they cover up to 20% of the earth. The largest desert is Sahara Desert. So it covers around 300 million square miles. And most of the animals which are present in the deserts, they are nocturnal in nature. This is because the temperature, as we have discussed previously, mornings are very hot and nights are very cold. And when compared to morning, these animals are more tolerable to the temperatures which are present in the night time. Therefore, they will be hunting or feeding during night times. So therefore, they are nocturnal. And the water is not present, they cannot be stored in the desert. And animals which are living in the deserts, they will store their water in their bodies or get their water needs met by the food, whatever the food they will take. So whatever the minute content of water which is present in the food, that they will utilize. And we can experience dust storms when the wind picks up the dust from the surface. So such kind of dust storms are very common in deserts. And the dust can go up to 1 mile high, and it can travel up to 100 miles. And except Europe, in all other continents, we can see deserts. And as the body fat retains the heat, most of the animals which are present in the deserts, they undergo some adaptations and they will, excuse, they will store the body fat in one part of the area to retain the heat. For example, camel. So it stores all its body fat in its hump. So because that's why the hump is very large. Only the fat is stored in hump. And the plants which are present, which are adapted to desert, they store their water in their stems. And the roots, whatever the roots which are present to of that plants, they will extend to very large distances so that until it finds some water. So through roots, they will extract the water and they will grow. And the best examples of desert plants is cacti. So it has many adaptations to survive in the desert. So they have the spines so that they will protect from the animals. And they have a waxy layer which is present on the outer surface of their body. This is because to prevent water transpiration. So in plants, we see transpiration where water will be evaporated. Okay, so to prevent that transpiration, loss of water, they will produce a waxy coating around their body surface. So this is Sahara Desert. So here you can see the grasslands around. So these are all different terrestrial ecosystems. Now we see aquatic ecosystems. So this is located in the water. So marine ecosystem and freshwater ecosystem are the two types of major aquatic ecosystems. So first is marine ecosystem. So it's the largest ecosystem. So it covers 71% of the Earth's surface. And around 97% of the water, planet's water, is present in this marine ecosystem. And the water in this ecosystem has high content of salt and minerals. And again, this marine system is of two types: ocean ecosystem and coral reef ecosystem. Ocean ecosystem, we have 5 ocean ecosystems like Atlantic, Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, Southern Ocean, and Aquatic Ocean. So here, the deepest part of the ocean is Mariana Trench, which is 36,200 feet depth. Okay, so it's the deepest part. And the largest ocean is Pacific Ocean. And the largest mammal we can find in ocean ecosystem is blue whale. So this is Atlantic Ocean. So that is ocean ecosystem. Then coral reef means it is located in the shallow. It is not deep. It is shallow. And it is in the clear portion of the ocean, mostly in tropical areas like East Africa, South India, Australia, Florida, Caribbean islands, Brazil. So on these areas, we can see these coral reefs. Great Barrier Reef. It is the largest coral reef ecosystem which is located in the Australia. And it covers up to 1,200 miles and consists of 400 species of corals. Okay. Then freshwater ecosystems. So it covers only 0.8% of the Earth's surface and contains 0.009% of total water. This is again two types, lentic and lotic. Lentic ecosystems are called standing waters, means they are stagnant in nature. So examples are lakes, ponds, marshes, pools, swamps. So all these are lentic ecosystems. So here we can see a lake in California. Then in lotic ecosystems, they are flowing water like rivers, streams, springs. These are lotic ecosystem. So this is Agusan River. we have many rivers. Okay, so any example you can take. So that is ecosystem. So this is all about, first of all, what is ecosystem? What are types of ecosystems, which we already know. Then comes to structure of ecosystem. So each ecosystem consists of same structure, but the components may vary, but the structure is same. So what is the structure of ecosystem? So ecosystem is made up of two types, two components, abiotic and biotic. Abiotic means non-living, biotic means living. Abiotic components examples are soil, water, light, inorganic nutrients, weather conditions. So all these are abiotic components. Then biotic components are living components like producers, consumers. So what are they? We discuss. So in the abiotic or non-living components, we have inorganic substances like minerals, nutrients, then organic substances, organic compounds like carbon, carbohydrates, all these. Then climatic factors, weather conditions, okay, so seasons. So all these are abiotic components. Then biotic or living components includes producers or autotrophs, consumers or heterotrophs, saprotrophs or decomposers. So autotrophs means, auto means self. So self producing, like which prepares their food by itself. So they are producers. Mostly they are plants. There are some cyanobacteria, some other organisms also, but majorly we call plants as the producers or autotrophs. Then consumers or heterotrophs. So the organisms which are dependent on the producers, they are consumers. Then decomposers or saprotrophs, they usually feed on dead and decaying matter, and they will majorly help in recycling of the nutrients in the environment. So biotic components. So from nutrition point of view, there are three types: producers, consumers, and decomposers. So um, based on the nutrition, there are autotrophs, heterotrophs, and saprotrophs. So producers include plants, which are autotrophs. They produce their own food through process called photosynthesis. And usually all other organisms, they depend on producers for food. Then consumers. Consumers are heterotrophs, which obtain their food and energy from producers. Okay, they are again four types: primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, and quaternary consumers. So primary consumers, they are always herbivores. They are feeding on producers like plants. The secondary consumers are primary consumers for energy. They depend on primary consumers. So they can be either carnivores or omnivores. Omnivores means both carnivores and herbivores. Then tertiary consumers, they feed on secondary consumers, and quaternary consumers feed on tertiary consumers. Okay, so this is the top of the food chain. So what is the food chain? All this we'll discuss. So these are consumers. Then finally decomposers, also called as saprophytes, and they are fungi, bacteria, some microorganisms. So they directly depend on organic matter which is coming from the dead and decaying matter. So their purpose is mainly to recycle the nutrients back into the environment, which can be utilized again by the producers. Now abiotic components includes water, soil, minerals, sunlight, temperature, nutrients, wind, altitude, turbidity. All these are abiotic components. So both these biotic and abiotic components, they will have to interact with each other. Okay, so that is what we are discussing. So that is when both interact with each other, that will form the ecosystem. So what is the functions of the ecosystem? So what are the functions of the ecosystem? So first is it regulates the essential ecological processes, supports life system and renders stability. So the ecological processes, whatever the processes which are taking place, that has to be stabilized and supported. So the interactions between organisms, so the whole uh, earth or whatever the components which are present, they has to be balanced. So that regulation is mainly done by this ecosystem. Then it is responsible for cycling of nutrients between biotic and abiotic components. So from, like, for example, if you see photosynthesis, from sunlight we are taking energy, and from air the plants are taking carbon dioxide. So again, they have to be recycled back into the environment, or whatever the carbon dioxide, then energy, everything has to be recycled, and other minerals like nitrogen, phosphorus, all this. And it maintains balance among various trophic levels in the ecosystem. The trophic levels are nothing but the levels of the organisms based on like energy or based on the food. So like that, we have different trophic levels. We will discuss them. And the cycles, mineral cycles, which has to be maintained in the biosphere. And the abiotic components, like all these water, soil, air, minerals, they have to like interact with the organic components which are involved in the exchange of energy. So the energy has to be exchanged, because the energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It has to be converted from one form to another. So from chemical energy, light energy to chemical energy to another form of energy. Again, it has to go back to light energy. So that means the energy is converted from one form to another, but we cannot get new energy from outside the world, or whatever the energy is lost outside. Okay. So we have a term called stratification. So stratification is nothing but the vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels. So stratification is nothing but the division. So we are dividing them vertically, okay, based on the distribution. Like usually trees, they are very tall and they occupy the top layer of the strata in the forest. Then comes shrubs. They are bit not very tall, but shrubs, bushes, all this, they are somewhat taller. Then herbs. Then the lower layer, bottom layer, it is covered by grasses. Okay. Now, finally, like what this is all about components of ecosystem. So, what is the function? So, as we have told, like the producers, they will fix the radiant energy or light energy, solar energy, and they take the help of minerals. They will produce the complex organic matter like carbohydrates. And that food is taken up by primary consumers from plants. From there, again, when these animals, so from primary producer to, sorry, primary consumers to secondary consumers to tertiary consumers. And finally, when these organisms die, these components are decayed or decomposed by the microorganisms. The minerals like carbon dioxide, water, again they are recycled back into the air, water, soil, etc. from where they are taken. Again, that is utilized by the plants. So this is the main function of the ecosystem. So mainly productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycling. So these are the primary functions of the ecosystem. Now, how this productivity is defined? It is nothing but the rate of biomass production is called as productivity. So whatever the biomass, or like whenever the light energy is utilized by the plants or producers, so they will produce carbohydrates. So that carbohydrate is the biomass. So how much carbohydrate is produced? So that is nothing but the productivity. So gross primary productivity is nothing but whenever after photosynthesis, how much amount of organic matter is produced or carbohydrate is produced. That is called gross primary productivity. And after this, some amount of energy is lost by respiration. So now from this gross primary productivity, some energy is lost. And now whatever the energy which is present, that is called net primary productivity. And then secondary productivity is nothing but when this is all this productivity is present in the plants. Now the primary consumers, when they feed on these plants, now the whatever the organic matter which is formed in the primary consumers, so that is nothing but the secondary productivity. The next is decomposition. So whenever the complex organic matter is broken down into inorganic substance like carbon dioxide, water, nutrients, that process is called decomposition. So what are the steps in the decomposition? Like fragmentation. First, the complex matter has to be broken down into smaller pieces, then leaching, then slowly decomposing like catabolism, humification, and finally mineralization. That is releasing all the minerals back into the nature. So this is the decomposition cycle. Like if we see a tree is grown in the soil and a leaf after like during fall season also, the leaf falls on the ground. Then some insects will come and feed on this leaf. So whatever the nutrients which are present in the leaf that are released into the soil by leach through process of leaching, okay, or this can be this leaf or insect may be eaten up by some fungi. And when this insect or this fungi it dies, again that minerals are added to the soil through decomposition. From there, again these minerals which are present in the soil, they are utilized by the trees to grow. So that means it is all these leach, if you see the, fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification, mineralization, all these are taking place here. The next is energy flow. So here, not only the minerals or matter, organic or inorganic matter, but the energy is also flowing. So the flow of energy is always in one direction, that is from producer to consumer. And finally, the process ends at decomposition. Okay, and during every step, a part of energy is lost in the form of heat. This is because this is what is explained in the second law of thermodynamics. So here we have some food chains. So for example, in grazing food chain, grass is the producer. So the grass content will be more. From grass, so the goats, which are called primary consumers, they feed on grass. So the number of goats will be less when compared to grass. So man or any next other animals, they will feed on goats. Now the man and other animals are secondary consumers. So the number of organisms which are feeding on the primary consumers, they are still less. Okay. So this is the pyramid. This is called food pyramids. Then another is detritus food chain. So it's a non-living part. Detritus is nothing but a organic material which is non-living. Either it is a part of the body, dead body, or a complete dead body or some fecal material. So all these they are called detritus. So now various microorganisms like fungi, bacteria, which are heterotrophic organisms, they feed on these detritus. And the decomposers are called saprotrophs. Now, some insects, they feed on detritus. So that insects are called primary detritus feeder. And some like rodents, like rats, mice, they will feed on these insects. They are called secondary detritus feeders. Okay, this is detritus food chain. Now we have another thing called food web. So food web is nothing but it is the feeding connection. It is a web. Web means so interconnection, interlinks based on their feeding habits in an ecological community. So here if we see goats, rabbits, mouse, all these they feed on trees and plants. Again this owl, snakes, they feed on mouse. And wild cats, they feed on rabbit and mouse. Even jackals also feed on mice, rats, and goat. Now again, these snakes are eaten up by eagles. Then this wild cat or jackal, they are or goat directly eaten up by lion. So that means primary consumers are eating producers, then secondary consumers are eating primary consumers. So likewise, like even the secondary consumers can directly eat producers. So this is a web or interaction between different living organisms. Okay. Now we'll see tropic level. So tropic level is nothing but the position of an organism which it occupies on the food chain. So we have seen detritus food chain. So all these like grazing food chain. So in that food chain, what is the position that is occupied by an organism? So here if we see producers like plants, they are present in the bottom region and they are high in number and they have high amount of energy also, like 1000 kilocalories here. Then the primary consumers are less in number and they have less amount of energy carried by them. Then secondary consumers, they have still less in number and less amount of energy. And finally, the tertiary consumers, they are very few in number and they have very little amount of energy carried by them. Now, how this energy flow goes through these tropical levels. So from sun, so sun have lot of energy, but does all the energy utilized by the plants? No. Only some amount of energy is utilized by the plants to produce organic matter. So therefore, the plants are producers. And during this process, some amount of energy is lost as a heat. Now, these primary producers are eaten up by the primary consumers, herbivores. During this eating process, some amount of energy is lost as heat. Then secondary consumers, they feed on primary consumers. And during this process, some amount of heat is lost. And tertiary consumers, they feed on secondary consumers. Again, heat is lost here. And when any of these organisms, it dies, the decomposers will come into the picture and they will try to decompose these organisms. During this process, some amount of heat is lost. And finally, all these minerals, whatever generated or energy, heat, everything goes back to the nature. And from where again, the same cycle is repeated. Then, ecological pyramids. Ecological pyramid is nothing but we are representing graphical representation of tropic levels. So in each ecosystem, at what level the organisms can be placed, like whether they can be placed in the producers or primary consumers or secondary consumers. So like that, we form a triangle. So that is nothing but a pyramid. Okay. So ecological pyramids are of three types: pyramid of number, pyramid of energy, pyramid of biomass. So pyramid of numbers is nothing but based on the number of the organisms present in each tropic level, we form a pyramid. So the pyramid of biomass in sea is also generally usually inverted. Okay. So here this is terrestrial, where the number of plants or producers are very high, and the animals which are feeding on those producers, they are less. And the secondary consumers which are feeding on the primary consumers, they are still less in number. Excuse me. So this is called pyramid of numbers. Then pyramid of biomass is usually inverted. So based on the biomass, but not the numbers here. So here the producers are phytoplanktons, or like trees, small plants which are present in the ocean, or small insects. So which will be high in number, but they are very small. They are not big in size. Therefore, the biomass will be less. Then herbivores which are feeding on them, they are somewhat bigger in size, and the biomass will be somewhat high. And compared to that, the carnivores or secondary consumers, they are still big in size, like whales, sharks. Their biomass is far high when compared to producers. Therefore, the pyramid of biomass is usually in the ecosystem, it is inverted. Then pyramid of energy. So pyramid of energy is nothing but based on the energy, how much it is carrying. So it is always upright. It can never be inverted, because the producers will have high amount of energy, which is taken up by the sunlight. So high amount of energy is present. Then the primary consumers will have less, they can utilize less amount of energy because some amount of energy is lost as heat. Then secondary consumers can utilize still less amount of energy. And finally, the tertiary consumers, they utilize only small portion of energy when compared to the previous tropic levels. Okay. So this is the pyramid of energy, which is always upright. So for today, we will conclude. So this is all about the ecosystem. What is ecosystem? Then what is the structure and function of the ecosystem, and what are the components of the ecosystem? Okay. So if you have any doubts, you can just ask. Okay. If you don't have any doubts, we will continue the next topic in the next class. Okay. Thank you so much.